This meeting is being recorded.
Donc, bonjour à tous et à toutes. Merci beaucoup d'être là et bienvenue à ce Midi du CIÉRA avec Cristian Ahumada, intitulé Technologie pour la revitalisation du mapuzugun et son application potentielle à d'autres langues autochtones. Cristian Ahumada est ingénieur électrique et titulaire d'une maîtrise en informatique de l'Université du Chili. Il est mapuche et a enseigné le mapuzungun à l'université. Ses études académiques ont toujours été liées au mapuche, en commençant par des études de premier cycle sur les énergies renouvelables dans les communautés isolées, puis par des études supérieures axées sur le mapuche, le mapuzungun. À noter que la présentation d'aujourd'hui va se dérouler en anglais. Je vous invite également à laisser vos caméras ouvertes. Ça donne toujours des conférences plus vivantes. Et sans plus tarder, je vais laisser la parole à Cristian. Je vous remercie encore une fois tout le monde d'être ici. Et voilà, Cristian, le micro est à toi.
We'll share my screen.
Are you okay to? Yeah.
Thank you. To start, chin ayawenta en conal, tubachinungu, balil todavía tubachimapu, sheuta en uchalen basiante, beita kiñe trokin mapu, kiñe petrak wibi mapumu, be sheuta en mulen mongen, trawulun ka trapkintun, tatipu mapu kichemu, cabe melo tatipu kanye que haka che, inchin balil tune ke in jamne ke in kaipi ke in pipe in tain mulekebel ka muleken tatu bashi mapumu ke che turpu elon novilut kidu tain norun kam tain unene bil ta mapu tatiko sheu tain traul un bashante, which means we would like to begin emphasizing that the lands on which we stand are part of an ancestral territory that has long served as place of life, encounters, and exchanges between indigenous people, including the Kaniekehaka nation. We honor, respect, and acknowledge these nations who have never ceded their rights or sovereign authority over the lands and waters on which we gather today. So, Mari Compuche, Cheta Cristian Ahumada Oliva Pingen, Cheta Tubun Chile Mapumu, Wal Mapumu Cabey, Pieki, Cheta Chilka Tukenta UCAM, Tati Computer Science PhD Programu, Ka Fatia Sadat Veita Incheta Ikimelbe, Veita Kelyupe Nota Tuashikudamu. Chita bachando ta pingel wain ta inkudao ta utram durante abiel ta tima pudungun ka utram durante abiel shumeshi ta utram durante abiel ta kake mapuke dungun. So I am Cristian Ahumada. I think it's important to talk in my language. So I'm here. I am a student in computer science PhD at CAM. Fatia Sadat is my director in this program. So I will talk about this technology revitalization of Mapudungun and its potential application in other indigenous languages. So who I am? I am Cristian Ahumada Oliva, Mapuche father and husband. I also have been teaching Mapudungun some years. I'm an electrical engineer, and I hold a master in computer science related to this language, Mapudungun. And I will start with the motivation for this work, for this PhD in my life, if you want. Pascual Coña was a chief, and more than 100 years ago, he said that Mapuche people were changing, the life was changing, and the young people was losing their cultural knowledge and their language. So he wrote a book, which is called in Mapudungun Chumeshi Atmonge Kevel Upukuibike Mapuche. That is how people live, how ancient Mapuche people used to live. And he was worried about these cultural laws and the laws of the language, and he wanted people to read this book to preserve the culture and the language. Because according to historical sources, there were 1 million native speakers of Mapudungun in what we call the ancestral Gualmapu, or which now is Chile and Argentina, Chile and Argentina, and it was almost half of Chile and a very good portion of Argentina, and from the Pacific to the Atlantic Ocean. And here is the map, and it is oriented because we have this the Mapuche knowledge. In Mapuche knowledge, the east is more important than the north. And so now the studies said that there could be between 200,000 and 300,000 Mapudungun speakers. So why it's important? Because it was not a natural losing process of the language and the culture. There were invasions, violent invasions, destruction of lands, destruction of houses, kidnapping. It could be like the same history that we could see here in these lands, or Canada, yes. And we also have our own version of the boarding schools. So people were punished because they talk Mapudungun, because they have their ceremonies. They were punished because of that, and it was a very, very good, a very big factor to this losing process. In the education right now, there are just few official instances to teach and learn Mapudungun, but they are not very good. They have a lack of support, and there is not teaching and learning in Mapudungun that it also it is important. So what can we do? There is a whole movement. It's called Wetrampuramtun Mapudungun, or the revitalization. And we say that if we are in Gualmapu, if we are in Chile, Mapuche land, we should use Mapudungun. Anyone who is in Gualmapu should use Mapudungun, and we should use Mapudungun for everything in this territory. So in education, we have to keep teaching and learning Mapudungun, but not only Mapudungun, but in Mapudungun. I'm talking about math, science, literature, anything in Mapudungun. And we, as people from the universities, we could do also research in Mapudungun. Maybe it's difficult now, but in my case, I did my presentation of my master thesis in Mapudungun, and it was the first time. So maybe we could do it again in some cases. And this is not just a Mapudungun problem, because we in Chile have 9 First Nations recognized by law, and they are also in Argentina, Peru, and Bolivia, in the case of Aymara, Quechua, and Diaguita. And we have also Rapa Nui, which is an island, and it's very far from Chile, but somehow we still have control of them as Chileans. I don't know why. And we, in the extreme south, we have Kaweshkar, Yagan, and all these peoples, all these First Nations are having the same challenges with language and culture. And as I could saw in the NRC's Indigenous Language Technology project, First Nations in Canada also could have these challenges. So it is important to maybe generalize this problem. These are some photos for my trip to Kawawachikamash, which is a community very, very far away from Montreal. And it was a very, very nice experience because I felt in home again when I went there. So I wanted to share this with you too. So regarding to challenges and background, a little background, how Mapudungun looks like. This is 2 words, a sentence, Kim Mapudungu Yekume Aingan, which means they will be learning to speak Mapudungun. So we could start seeing what are some complexities to just translate. And we have 2 words in Mapudungun and we have 7 words in English. So it is not just take a dictionary and try to translate. And we have also a lot of diversity through territories. We have pronunciation differences, word differences, and a lot of writing systems because Mapudungun is not standardized. The government has its own orthography, but it's not spread in the general Mapuche people. So we have this challenge too. But we agree, all Mapuche people, that it is just one language. And even if we have some difference, it's just one language and we could understand each other if we talk Mapudungun. So from computer science, what tools we have? Natural language processing, which is using computation to analyze, to generate, to help to process in some way the language. And then human-computer interaction and educational software or application, which is how we present this to be useful to people and not just for computer scientists or people that know how to use computers very well and code. And we have to look at what we have as a corpus. We have a lot of publications and books, but there is not a standard. Sometimes it comes with errors, and we have a big corpus that it was developed by CMU, the Carnegie Mellon University, like 20 years ago, which is 170 hours of Mapudungun audio, transcribed and translated to Spanish to do some experiments. They wanted to do some translators in that period, but that didn't end in nothing, just in this big corpus. And there are some efforts like this morphological analyzer from Andres Chandia, or educational tools like dictionaries, interactive dictionaries by Sedeti UC, and the people from CENIA, which is a research center on Catholic University. They are developing a translator for Rapa Nui and Mapudungun. So what was my way to try to help in this problem? I developed a morphological analyzer in my master thesis directed by Claudio Gutierrez in University of Chile. We start seeing just one word here in Mapudungun. This is Witu and Tukunui, and this is like it's like voiding another, I don't know, a wristband with water. So we have 6 different ways to write it, and we have 3 orthographies here and 2 territorial variants. So it is complicated to standardize sometimes. So we develop a transliterator, which is to transform one orthography to another one. So we have the 3 most common writing systems, the Ragileo, Asunchefe, and Unificado. And we could transliterate between them and some variations that could be often used, like variation of them or maybe mixing them. It's a rule-based, so it's important in which order you do these transformations to have a good output. This was the base to detect orthographies. So I developed like a little algorithm to know if we could assume some writing systems. For example, we have the Trump can. We have assumed that it is in Unificado, and we transliterate it to Ragileo, and then we come back to Unificado. If they are the same word in the input and in the output, we could say that it could be the right orthography. It is not. We could say that we should try with another one. So here the transliteration didn't give the right word, so it is not unificado, but the same word, making this transliteration with as between Asunchefe to Ragileo and then come back to Asunchefe. It does give the right word, so it could be Asunchefe. But it could be because there are some intersections between the orthographies. For example, meu, it's the same in, I could say 99% of orthographies. Meu, it will remain the same because it's very related to how we write Spanish. And this is also a possibility, so we could mix words to know maybe we in a text while adaptation or maybe something related to know which is the right orthography. After this, we could now process the easily the words. We could segment it as we saw in the first mapuzugun word translated to English. We saw it is agglutinative, so we have a lot of morphemes together to in a word to mean a sentence. And this is a communication focused segmentator. It's not something strictly linguistic because it was designed to educational for teachers and for learners of Mapuche. Here is how this works. We have a set of morphemes from Mapudungun, and we are trying to cover this word with the morphemes, but we have to remove some cases when, for example, kupa, la, el is not allowed in Mapuche syntax or Mapuche grammar to be together, la and el. So we remain with the first 2 examples, and we could assign then some translation values to support this process. For example, this is the sentence is akin to nien guineum. So akin to it will give to see, nie it is to have or to be, and the N is I or me. Then quiñe is one, and onion is bird. So if we have these values from the segmented word or sentence, we could try to figure out which is the right translation, which in this case, it is I'm watching a bird. So even if we don't give the full translation, we could support translators or people studying or people teaching Mapudungun to complement these processes. So the integration of tools is that we have a word or sentence, we detect the system, we segment it, then we assign this Spanish in the original application values, and then we have the analyzed word. In this case, we have the word udalcawe, and this is like how I call this tool, which is like the thing that is used to split things, like to divide things. So this is udalcawe, which could mean segmentator. And I also add some interactive things like to know how to count or the numbers in Mapudungun, to have some more content in the application. Maybe it could be useful for kids and for teachers and learners. Yes. We test this in the second test because the first test was just 9 people and was a very long test. So we decided to do a new one in these 32 peoples, Mapuche peoples. We have like 3 groups: the beginners, the intermediates, and the native speakers. And this was like a general assessment about the application in difficult of use and how it looks, and the general score that they give to the application. But what we learn about this is, in general, those who have a high level in Mapudungun are not native speakers. They find the application very useful. It's a very important factor to decide if we are using or not this application. The better results are observed with difficult words because it is from advanced levels in the teaching, so it could be not so reachable in other ways. The native speakers didn't feel comfortable with the software because they didn't need it, so it was not maybe aimed for them, at least for people that is not involved in education in Mapudungun. And this does not replace other ways of learning, but complements them. And the last learning from this project is that we could use AI to maybe do a better orthographic detection, or maybe a normalization tool to not have depending on rules in the infinite variation of orthographies. Then I joined another little project. It's a Mulwe Kimun, and this was a collaboration between native speakers, social science faculty of University of Chile, and the National Corporation of Indigenous Development, CONADI, which is like the indigenous part of the state. And we wanted to do a Duolingo-like application for Mapudungun with adding some automatic speech recognition to test pronunciation from the students and try to improve that speech part. And this is the result. It is an application in Mapudungun. They have exercises, questions, and a chat and a forum to to interact between Mapudungun learners, and it is in Spanish also because we are aware that there are beginners with no prior knowledge in Mapudungun, so it is an option to see it in Spanish. Here is a question that where they have to complete the sentences, and here is a multiple answer questions, and we started to do this experiment with automatic speech recognition, and we evaluated it with a native speaker, and she said that it is not perfect, but in some cases it performs very well. This is a transcription of audio, and the left column is the original transcription, and the right column is the prediction of the model. So it could be very interesting to keep developing this, to use it as a documentation or maybe an educational tool. So what I learned from all these projects, I learned that it's not just for Mapudungun, because I have been a couple of times messaged to ask me if it could be applicable in other languages, and I said that if we know the language and if we have the data, we could make the tools and the models. Maybe I don't know, other First Nations morphological analyzers, quiz-ups, ASRs, translators. I always remember an Aymara that asked me for how to do this morphological analyzer in this when I was presenting these works. But it's not just doing things, because all projects must involve people from the First Nations. I could say better if involve people from First Nations in the case of language who speaks the language. And it's important to talk with communities regarding the data and scopes about the projects. And we have a lot of possibilities to make different and good performing tools, but communities should set the priorities and decide what is the next step in every project. So the last future work that I could let to you is to Doi Kim Mapudungun Kovinchin, which means learn more Mapudungun, all of us. Or in this case, we are in another territory, so the language of the territory. And that was my presentation. Thank you for listening to me. And if there is any question, please ask. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Christian. Est-ce que tu pourrais cesser le partage d'écran?
Oui.
Super. On passera à la période de questions, commentaires et n'importe quel type d'information, d'intervention est possible. Anna, avant de te laisser poser ta question, j'aurais deux questions à poser. En attendant que ce soit disponible sur Duolingo, Christian, tu as parlé d'une application qui était disponible en espagnol et en mapudungun.
Mm-hmm.
Est-ce qu'il y a un lien Internet qui sera accessible pour ça?
The Duolingo like app is not open. It is
Yeah.
in internet, but it has some login and credentials to get in, because it was taught like inside courses. But the other one, the morphological analyzer, it is available on internet.
Can you put in the chat the link?
Yes.
Merci. Et une autre question. Si je comprends bien, en fait, le programme que tu as fait pourrait s'appliquer à n'importe quelle autre langue polysynthétique. Par exemple, le Naskapi qui est l'Iuv Ininun. Donc, comment fonctionnerait concrètement?
The main issue is to know the grammar if we want to do it in rule based as the first work. We have to know the grammar. We have to know what are the morphemes involved in the language, and we have to create like this because mapuzugun has like slots, and we could like activate or deactivate some slots to form these phrases or these sentences. So we have to know very well that that ordering because if we not arrange the morphemes in the good way, it won't make sense to native speakers, so it won't be useful.
Okay.
But if we know like the grammar and the syntax, the vocabulary, we could do this in a practical sense. If I have like the list of morphemes, I could put it in my system and it will be working with another language.
Merci. Anna, c'est à toi.
Oui, je vais peut-être là, comme ça je regarde Mari Incheta Ana Pingen Incheta Tugun La Plata, Cuelma Pumau. Hasta ahí. I'm also a mapuzugun learner. Yeah, I don't know. Should I ask my question in English or Spanish or French? I don't know. My first question was the same than Arnaud. I wanted to know if the app was available because it sounds so interesting. Thank you, Manu Mayu, for your presentation. And yeah, as a Mapuzugun learner, I am very curious about, and I found it very difficult, the different grafemarios, the different ways of writing the language, which are so different. And I saw that you put a lot of effort on working on those differences and made them clear for your application, your app, and your work. And I was wondering, for your other works and for your work as a Mapuzugun teacher, which grafemario, which orthograph, I don't know, system do you think it's the best, or which one do you use? And why do you think it is possible to have a unified or standardized grammar? Because I see it's a very common problem even here with other languages. I am also an Inuaimun learner, and there is a standardized grammar, but there is always different communities have different opinions about that.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the possibility of a standardized grammar?
I think that there is many ways to answer that, because there is a first way that it is. I think that it could be standardized, and maybe the unificado orthography or grafemario, it is like the easiest to learn as a Spanish speaker, but it has maybe some. It's like a problem at the same time, because people try to pronounce like Spanish, so it could be that way. And then we have like the political, we could say, way to answer it, and often Mapuche people that is like in the movement say that the Raguileo is like the most Mapuche graffemario because it was developed by Mapuche and those didn't have so much intervention like the other ones, because Asumchefe is the official for the CONADI, which is this government department for indigenous stuff. Yes, and then we have like the people that are involved in these movements that say that maybe we should use the CONADI's graffemario because it is another fact that we have to do before we do like the real revitalization. If we are going to, it has. I don't have the answer. I even for myself I don't have the answer, but I try to use like my variation of mapuzugun in as my standard, but sometimes in formal I do it in the CONADI's way. I don't know. It depends. It depends on where you are going to use this. But yes, it's a very difficult issue, and I don't have the answer, and that's why I did this transliteration in every sense, in all ways, because I don't want to answer this question myself, because it's not my role to do it.
Thank you, Manu Mayo.
Really.
Merci Anna et Christian. D'autres personnes aimeraient faire un commentaire, poser une question ou intervenir d'une quelconque façon. Non, Mathieu, tu n'as pas de questions? Surprenant. Bon.
J'ai eu plein d'occasions de parler à Christian quand il est venu au cours à Kawachikamatch. Puis je le reçois en classe dans un mois. Mais oui, je trouve ça très intéressant. En fait, ma question plus concrète serait comment ou quels sont tes intérêts à ancrer ou à développer un projet au Québec?
Oui, I think that it is important to me to, as I said, I think that I have to talk Mapudungun in Walmapu. I think I have to, maybe I will try to learn some language from this territory, and if I can and if I am allowed by communities, I could work with them. I will be very happy to do it, because I think collaboration, and most important, between communities, even if we are far away each other, it's very important. So the project itself, what will be, it maybe it's not my role to say it, but I will be supporting them if I can do it.
Et puis je trouve que cette posture éthique-là, elle est très importante et bien, je te félicite aussi pour cette démarche-là puis cette sensibilité-là. Ouais.
Merci, Mathieu. Bon, s'il n'y a pas d'autres interventions ou questions, je mettrai fin à ce Midi du CIÉRA. Je remercie encore tout le monde d'avoir participé. Christian, c'était super intéressant. Merci beaucoup d'avoir accepté de faire la communication. Et voilà, je cesse l'enregistrement.